So Lexie Hull is back. Yes, she is back with the Indiana Fever. And that is one of the more important things. Well, not even just specifically Lexie Hull's back. The more players there are that are back for the Fever, the better it's going to be.
Head Stephanie White, the coach, was left completely stunned to see Caitlin Clark's most recent workout with Lexie Hull session this unforeseen instruction. Intensity has astounded everyone. Organization, particularly for arriving so early. Throughout the off-season, Clark continues pushing limits, although the majority of players are still recuperating, and Hull's unexpected serious concerns have been raised about commitment, about roster spots.
I think I want to be known as just a really good teammate, someone that my teammates trust, that they know that I'll give everything that I have.
The competitive dynamic that is evolving between these two may fully change the Fever's strategy for the upcoming season. The video from this exercise shows a suspicion shared by many of us, but hadn't verified yet. But Hull is defending her basketball career. Let's, if she hadn't, be brutally honest here. Heated up following the last Olympic break season, she may not have appeared in a WNBA uniform once more following the Olympics. Her career was practically salvaged by her performance. However, the actual job now starts. What's especially noteworthy regarding Hull's comeback is the timing. It's only been 8 minutes, days after the unmatched league concluded. Up-and-coming athletes, such as Aaliyah Boston, are taking time off for their well-earned recuperation. Hull wasted no time at all before returning to the gym with such desperation. Shows how well she understands of where she stands in the pecking order.
Because the more time these players spend together, the better it is for everybody. And I mean that. The more time they're together, the better it is for every single player on that Indiana Fever team.
Team the truth. Confronting Hull is difficult, but it's indisputable with Sophie Cunningham has been added to the roster. Minutes are seriously in danger, aren't they? I would now envision Hull receiving perhaps 5 minutes in each match, and even that may be. Cunningham's addition was substantial, makes her position directly competitive. And even though their playing styles differ, their positions are identical. One item in the rotation is Hull is defensive, which is one of her advantages. She has superior perimeter capability, defender than Cunningham, but is that sufficient to guarantee valuable minutes when Cunningham adds more offensive firepower, which is the exact reason why Hull needs to start working out early to demonstrate increased offensive power if she wishes to remain current in this. Varying the level of difficulty of these exercises appears to have captured Stephanie White, totally off guard. Sources nearby. According to the crew, White was taken aback by the degree of communication and chemistry is already emerging between Hull and Clark. Weren't the only two players are being nonchalantly shot up. This was intentional, targeted training with circumstances specific to games. What's particularly remarkable is how Caitlin Clark is still the benchmark for the entire company, but the league stars are taking long pauses. Clark's strategy stays unrelenting. She was seen exercising at the New York wnba gym while going to the wedding of her boyfriend, Connor McAfee. Butler coaching match prior to going to a Taylor Swift at the Chiefs game. Managed to work out in the morning. This work ethic isn't merely outstanding, almost obsessive. Online, there is a comment that precisely depicts the mindset they persuaded. Caitlin, who is homeless, resides in the gym. Even if it's humorous, it draws attention to sincere in her approach to this degree of dedication spreads like wildfire among an organization, establishing an implicit norm that other people feel obliged to match, which is precisely what we're witnessing. She has acknowledged with Hull that for her to survive in the WNBA, she must match. Hull can see Clark's intensity in the video, practicing catch-and situations, especially created to enhance the passing prowess of Clark. Isn't coincidental. Hull understands that the greatest way to get minutes is turning into the ideal supplementary item to the the focal point of the team, Brianna Turner, was additionally present at this exercise, which adds additional layer of competition to the dynamic. He is vying for backup center and minutes of power forwarding with Dyrus Dantas. And even though they provide distinct skills, slots on the set's roster are restricted. 8-minute games differ from one another. Additionally, a DNP-CD frequently boils down to these workouts during the off-season and the results. What are they doing on the coaching staff? Been especially noteworthy regarding these sessions, the majority of FIBA roster is already taken into consideration in some. Sophie Cunningham's capacity has returned, and in the gym, Brianna Turner is exercising. In Indiana, Sydney Carlson has arrived. Dana Bonner is here with her 17 years of experience as a veteran is the only players that are not physically present have valid explanations for Dyrus Dantas, and Melissa Smith is performing in Turkey. Jaylen Brown is in Russia at the moment. The Fever's early unity provides them a huge advantage over non-assembling teams, till the chemistry of the training camp is closer. Isn't constructed overnight, and these extra months and weeks of collaboration could result in a number of other victories in a cutthroat Eastern Conference. Stephanie White's response for the upcoming season. All of this has been especially remarks following the viewing of the Clark Hall. White reportedly had to work out, totally reevaluate a few of her offensive sets the ball for the upcoming season. Movement and distance between these two. The chemistry amongst the guys was so natural that White is now looking for methods to maximize this particular two-person activities inside the broader context of the team. What makes this even more amazing is the fact that this degree of commitment from Hull, in spite of, occurred in the movie Unrivaled, Let's Not. It was difficult to sugarcoat it, notably with her shooting during that many gamers would compete in. Took a long break to focus on reset following a performance like that instead. Hall is addressing her personally, overcoming difficulties by exerting work on the Fever's shooting right away. This is where Clark's influence is felt. Coaches gets significantly more obvious in spite of Clark, the team's undeniable standout, has demonstrated a readiness to put in a lot of work. With actors such as Hall, the video shows many sequences when Clark is actually going over specifics with Hall. Footwork modifications on the catch-OT. Opportunities are more than just improving on his own. Clark is aggressively working to make her teammates more productive with this kind of. Clark's leadership challenges the claim that she is not an outspoken leader, even though she doesn't provide inspiring talks. Her dialogue during these exercises shows a more realistic, hands-on. She is demonstrating a leadership style that goes beyond revealing and supporting everything with her. Possess an unparalleled work ethic. What's really striking about Clark's approach is the equilibrium she's achieving. These exercises don't seem too extremely demanding in terms of physical effort. They prioritize the development of skills. Clark's timing and chemistry appear to recognize the importance of sustainability, particularly for someone with her minutes, load, and use rate she's not running. In October, she plunges herself into the ground, keeping up her conditioning while concentrating on particular technical enhances basketball intelligence. Displayed during these sessions has. Stephanie was evidently taken aback by. The majority of sources point to White was especially pleased with how swiftly Hull and Clark have matured. Nonverbal exchanges regarding cuts, and there is footage of a sequence on the displays. When Hull places a screen, slides it, and gets a pass without looking from Clark, the kind of chemical that usually requires. This takes more than 2 months to develop. Players are being shot up, and this is intentional effort to create a useful two-player game that may be used in particular gaming scenarios. Hull appears to have next season acknowledged that her route to minutes rely on developing into a trustworthy release valve when Clark is overcommit by defenses. We're also witnessing unmistakable proof that the culture of the Fever is changing in. A good start to the previous season was A. Mixed bag, amazing performances, but the team is unreliable. These early exercises indicate A. More cohesive approach is formed with players assuming responsibility for their development instead of holding out for. Stephanie White, the coach-mandated sessions, reportedly told employees that she has never witnessed this degree of player-driven intensity ever since she began coaching the teams with a championship hunger and Tama catchings, which is an amazing compliment and implies the foundation being constructed might be more important than many observers recognize this as being in stark contrast to several other organizations where programs throughout the off-season are more loosely organized. The degree of the Fever's dedication is evident. Roster implies a comprehension that windows of opportunity for professionals with Clark developing sports are short-lived as a skill that spans generations, and the roster approving her gradually. There's acknowledgement that the moment to capitalize is no longer later for Hall in particular. These exercises are a battle for pertinence to the harsh reality of the rosters of professional sports. Change and jobs become less important. Hall is fighting not only for a few minutes but for the chance to continue participating in the league that she displays signs of desperation. Intensity throughout these sessions, the technical features of their putting forward deserve consideration as well. Hull has distinctly identified particular flaws in her strategy, especially her defensive and consistent shooting footwork, and is speaking straight to them. The video displays several defensive exercises in which Hull is up against. To get better, she practices with male players. This self-awareness and lateral quickness regarding shortcomings is something that not everyone professional athletes have a lot of. Prefer to capitalize on current advantages instead of facing the limits of Hall's readiness to address her shortcomings. Confronting implies a level of maturity that could, if she can translate, she can further her career. These exercises into performance during games, the competitive dynamic that is emerging between Cunningham and Hull will be intriguing to observe as their teammates work in the direction of group achievement. They're also battling for almost the same number of minutes. How they deal with this conflict while keeping the team cohesive will be a important side story for the Fever after season. What stands out in particular concerning Clark's strategy is that she's not only honing her personal abilities, she is actively establishing a rapport with co-workers in various positions. Groups, there is video of her sprinting. Brianna's pick-and-roll sequences. Turner and Hull are working on timing on movements off the pitch, and even working on high. The posts have low entry passes. Thorough approach shows a advanced comprehension of what promoting individual and team success. Regular season games can be won by brilliance. However, winning teams need to be unified. Units in which players have a close recognize one another's inclinations, and Stephanie White is astonished by her preferences. Response appears to be partially due to the degree of specificity in these exercises. According to some accounts, White was especially pleased with Clark's ability to communicate during particular actions, highlighting defensive rotations that point to counterattacks, and actively mentoring colleagues across sequences. At this basketball level, players rarely possess brains, so at the beginning of their careers, she and Clark's growing chemistry could actually save her job. The actuality of WNBA roster building indicates that those that are capable of the significance of complement stars is enormous. Even with little individual output, if Hull can make a name for herself, who makes the most of Clark's efficiency when they share her roster slot on the court, becomes considerably safer. The timing of these exercises are very important in the WNBA's broader perspective as the popularity of the league soars and resources accept the standard for Professional commitment increases. Correspondingly, the days of treating the as a part-time activity, the WNBA is quickly vanishing with year-round dedication, turning into the norm rather than the prompt return of the exception Hall 2. This changing reality is reflected in training. She is aware that playing in the WNBA, a full-time roster place is now required. Commitment that goes beyond seasonal concentration signifies a substantial change in the women's professional basketball landscape. What stands out in particular is how these exercises differ from Hall's performance, and she is unparalleled. Had a serious shooting incident, difficulties during that competition which could have undermined her self-esteem. Instead, she's dealing with those problems, immediately working on the catch in great detail. In film situations using Clark's precise passing that positions her for success, the tactical components of these sessions show a well-developed knowledge about how the Fever must change from the previous season. Their offense frequently became predictable and stagnant, particularly when defenses focused on Clark. These exercises demonstrate intentional focus on creating secondary responses and rebuttals when the main choices are not offered at this degree of. In the off-season, tactical sophistication exercise is uncommon and reflects the both players' basketball intelligence. They are not merely upholding conditioning or working on solitary abilities, they're developing a useful system that deals with particular weaknesses from the previous season. The reaction of Stephanie White to all of this has allegedly involved speeding up, seeing some of her off-season preparations, the growing chemistry between Clark and it seems that Hull has motivated her to rethink some offensive sets in order to make the most of their emerging two-player game. This shows that the coach is flexible, strategies based on player chemistry that emerges, instead of strictly following established systems for Hull. This opportunity is especially valuable, considering her draft status and expectations, chosen using the 6th overall selection in her career in 2022. Trajectory hasn't corresponded with those expectations that these exercises convey. Maybe this is her last chance to demonstrate she particularly belongs at this level, with more people vying for wings. What's evident from all of this minutes is that the Fever group is going into last season a new stage of development was to lay the groundwork for parts and adapting to Clark's distinct. This offseason, talent seemed focused on creating the complementary components. They alter the genius of each individual into group achievement. The existence of several participants in these volunteer sessions implies a group knowledge of the issues at hand. The Eastern Conference keeps getting better, and keeping up the gains from the previous season will necessitate substantial internal growth that these exercises exhibit, an awareness that holding off till to develop chemistry a training camp would provide them with a competitive edge. Especially for Clark, these sessions exhibit maturity that is beyond her years. Despite her already established celebrity status, she's getting closer to these exercises with someone's hunger still. Battling for acceptance with this mentality keeps one from being complacent and creates a norm for the whole company. The video shows Hull and Clark at work collectively demonstrates a substantial improvement in their spacing and timing in contrast to early in the previous season. The hesitancy that occasionally described their fluid interactions have taken the place of motion and expectation. This development implies significant expansion is taking place even in these early. What Stephanie White does during off-season workouts seemed most surprised by how rapidly this chemical is creating sources near the team suggests that White had expected to require substantial upcoming season's practice period to develop the degree of intimacy she's already seeing. This rapid chronology could enable more sophisticated tactical deployment earlier in the season. Don't pass up our next exclusive Detailed explanation of how these training sessions will be transferred to the Ankh court. Success! Click the subscribe button right away. And if you'd like, hit the like button. More access to the Fever's interior development, please leave a remark with your forecast regarding how this Clark link will have an effect on the team after. Your support over the season keeps these insiders reports